Oh my god, this is probably one of the best possible multiverses we're living in because there were basically no price hikes, even a few price reductions, going completely against what I was expecting with the pricing this year. And yeah, a lot of the hardware related leaks ended up being pretty spot on, but I am so glad that most of the leaks surrounding pricing ended up being wrong. Got a lot of things to recap today, so we better just get started. Let's begin. Let's talk about AirPods Pro 2, because those are one of the things that I was kind of doubting was to be announced at this event, but Apple confirmed that AirPods Pro are actually their most popular AirPods, which surprised me. I thought the cheaper pairs were more popular, but yes, the rumors were true. They now have AirTag-like functionality. They have an external speaker, which you can ping if you're looking for your case, but on top of that, they also added a little lanyard attachment, which is cool. I'm sure AirPod accessories are going to be really popular now, but also when you charge your AirPods Pro 2, the case should make a little chirping sound, which I didn't know I wanted, but that sounds kind of fun. And a big surprise is that you can also charge AirPods Pro 2 with your Apple Watch charge puck, which is the first time I've ever seen the Apple Watch charge puck be able to charge anything other than Apple Watches. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know if there's some weird AirPower tech lingering around, but basically, yeah, on MagSafe Duo, you can charge your phone and your AirPods simultaneously, which you couldn't do before because I didn't realize you could put Apple Watch charge tech into the AirPods. The bit of a bummer though about AirPods Pro 2 is that we didn't really get any upgrades with higher fidelity audio. I know there was a lot of rumors and talk about lossless support coming. Doesn't seem to be the case, unfortunately. Although they did launch it with a new H2 chip with better efficiency, now longer battery life, so they last 6 hours per charge, which is much better. 30 hours with the charge case, which was about dang time. Those AirPods Pro had terrible battery life relative to the rest of the lineup. And they said that active noise cancellation has been improved, so it can actually reduce background noise up to 2 times more than before. And they showed off these awesome features with adaptive noise cancellation where it can detect, like, you know, road work noise versus talking noise. So maybe you won't have to switch between noise cancellation and transparency as often. But a big surprise, which I'm very happy to report and was not expecting, is that the touch controls have been improved to now support volume scrubbing. So you can actually change your AirPods volumes right off the pod itself rather than having to rely on an Apple Watch or something. So I was not expecting that, and I'm very happy it now exists. Spatial audio should sound a bit more immersive thanks to some new custom equalizers and stuff. We'll have to wait until we can hear them to see if there's actually a noticeable difference. But the best news about AirPods Pro 2 is they did not get a price increase, which I was really worried they were because of the inflation environment we're in. But they still start at $249. Great price. That's what they launched at in 2019. $249 doesn't mean what it used to mean, but they're sticking true with that. So awesome. The Apple Watch line got completely revamped. No Apple Watch that Apple sold yesterday is available anymore. They got rid of the first gen SE, they got rid of the Series 3. Finally! I thought this day would never come. The Series 3 is finally dead. Oh, thank God. And even the Apple Watch Series 7, of course, is not sold anymore. But as far as the SE and the Series 8 go, there's very few notable changes to talk about. I mean, basically, Apple came up with these new G-force accelerometers that they put in both the SE2 and the Series 8, which allow for car crash detection, which I don't know how common it is, but it will be probably life-saving to some that when you're in a car crash, the watch will detect it and be able to call the authorities if you're incapacitated or whatever. So I'm glad that feature's there, but as far as external design goes, the Series 8 is identical to the Series 7. Barely any changes, not very many surprises. They did add a body temperature sensor, but it doesn't seem to be used for like checking if you have a fever or if heat stroke is an issue. They mainly pushed it for menstrual cycle tracking and saying that it might give you some more health data when you're doing sleep tracking. So not super applicable to a lot of the population, us guys. But they tried to sneak in a big update in there that wasn't actually a big update because they said they're introducing a new low power mode that turns off some extra features like the always on display and the automatic activity workout tracking. And it should allow your battery life to go from 18 hours to 36 hours, which I was really happy to hear about low power mode coming to the watch. But then they mentioned that that feature's coming to the Series 4 and later. So you don't even need to have a Series 8 or even a Series 7 to get low power mode. That's just a really awesome, great watchOS feature that Apple decided to not announce with watchOS 9. They just wanted to save that for the Series 8 launch for some reason. The Apple Watch SE2 also got car crash detection, but aside from that, it's the same design as before with the one change of switching to nylon polyester on the back, which is a fancy way of saying plastic. So it's not a glass back anymore, but I'm totally okay with that because for one, you hardly ever look at the back of your Apple Watch, and for two, the Apple Watch SE 2 got a price reduction. I did not see this coming at all. I expected it to be a price hike because the iPhone SE got a price hike earlier this year. So I was like, why wouldn't the Apple Watch SE get a price hike as well? But they actually lowered the price to now $249, which is an incredibly good deal if you're just buying straight new from Apple. If some of you are wondering, maybe I should get the Series 8 because that's the new fancy new Apple Watch with the new colors and it's got car crash detection, which I might end up using. When in reality, if you go certified refurbished, you can find an Apple Watch Series 7 starting at $299. Save yourself a bunch of money and just get a Series 7. Seriously, I don't think any of the Series 8 features are worth spending extra for personally. Maybe you feel different if you're a woman or you plan on getting in more car crashes, but in my opinion, the Series 7 is still plenty fine, and I honestly think fall detection on most Apple Watches will still probably work during a car crash anyway. But don't take my word for it on that. Just please drive safely if at all possible. Where most of the Apple Watch upgrades came into effect is the Apple Watch Ultra. I love surprises like this because we were not expecting the Ultra terminology. We thought it would be an Apple Watch Sport or Apple Watch Rugged. They've started using the Ultra terminology with Apple Silicon, so it makes sense that they brought it to the Ultra as well. But the leaks were true on the hardware. It is bulky, it is ugly, it is chonk. This is the big chungus of Apple Watches, and I love it. I love how ugly it is. This type of design scheme is often referred to as brutalism. It's like leading into how sharp and how rugged of a product this is because it's meant to be tough. It's meant to be abused and take a beating in the field, and that's why they put the metal around the flat glass on the top so it could be better protected. Of course, it's still sapphire glass, but the chassis is made of titanium, and interestingly, it only comes in one size, which is 49 millimeters. So this is the biggest display on a watch ever. And on top of that, it's also only in one color, which makes the configuration very simple because I guess maybe additional paint is just going to get scratched off anyway if this is being used by scuba divers, because this is rated for twice the depth as normal Apple Watches. It's extra durable, so why put unnecessary paint on this thing? And even though it comes with these special durable rugged watch bands, the funny thing is 45 millimeter watch bands like this still are compatible with the 49 millimeter Apple Watch. Even though it's this huge watch, the watch bands from your bigger Apple Watches of before, like the 44 and the 45 millimeter, they still work on the Ultra, and vice versa. The watch bands that come with your Ultra will still work with older Apple Watches. They just might not sit as flush. But a lot of people are expecting, because it's a 49 millimeter, it has to have a brand new watch band connection type, and I'm very thankful that that's not the case. Apple still lets you use your old watch bands. What really surprised me about the Apple Watch Ultra was also the price. I was thinking somewhere between like $900 and $1,000, but they actually got it to $799. And keep in mind, there's no cellular option, there's no bigger size or whatever. So some people see $799 and they go, oh, that's before you upgrade it to the one you want. No, not really. Like $799 for the biggest 49 millimeter Apple Watch with titanium. And yes, it comes with cellular by default if you want to activate that type of thing. But that price point was way lower than I was expecting. And I actually think this is going to be really, really popular compared to a lot of Garmin G-Shock watches that sell today, especially because it's a connected watch and they added this whole action button on the side that's customizable, remappable to different third-party apps that can take advantage of it, especially if you're scuba diving. Having those extra buttons are helpful because touchscreens don't work underwater. And it also even gained screws on the back. I wonder if that's going to help at all with repairability, hopefully. And it has improved speaker quality that can chirp if you're in an emergency up to like 86 decibels. Super duper loud for a tiny watch like that, and it should have better call quality as well. And the most important thing that people have been asking for the Apple Watch for years is that the Apple Watch Ultra finally has an improved battery life, and it's a pretty major one. We're going from 18 hours before, that's all Apple Watches since the beginning, to now the Ultra rocking a 36-hour battery life, and they said that the lower power mode launching later will get it up to like 60 hours. So finally a multi-day battery life out of an Apple Watch, which is going to be great, especially if you plan on owning it for a long time and that battery degrades. That will, like, even if it was at 50% battery health, then it will be on par with basically a brand new Apple Watch Series 8 today. So the battery life improvements I think are a big deal, and the price being lower than I expected is fantastic. So that's why I'm pessimistic with a lot of pricing, is I think it's great to have your expectations low and then be pleasantly surprised when reality and the real prices end up being better than we thought. And speaking of prices, no price hikes applied to the entire iPhone 14 lineup. Of course, we gotta talk iPhone season now. Most of the leaks ended up being correct, but not quite to the insane level that I was expecting. Like, okay, the 14 and 14 Plus, yes, they still have the A15 chip. They gave them an extra GPU core, so it's still a bit of a graphics boost from the iPhone 13 series. The 14 Plus is real, and it only costs $899, and it has one of the best battery lives ever in an iPhone, which is why I personally think the 14 Plus will be the best seller. In the compare page, it's still a little bit behind in video playback compared to the 14 Pro Max, but in the audio playback section, it's actually listed at 100 hours, so it has an insanely good battery life for the price. And the regular iPhone 14 still starts at $799. That's, of course, if you're buying through a carrier. If you buy it unlocked, both phones still have that extra $29 upcharge. I'm a bit bummed that they haven't gotten rid of that yet, but essentially those regular iPhone 14s got a lot of hand-me-down features, right? Like, they got the A15 chip from the Pro iPhones last year, and I'm guessing they both got 6 gigs of RAM, but we don't have confirmation on that yet. And on the back, we also got an improved main sensor, which is the same sensor they used in the 13 Pros. And the front-facing camera is also a 12 megapixel upgrade with better low-light performance and autofocus, which wasn't on the front camera before. And they talked about new deep fusion photographic algorithms that should make low-light perform even better with this year's iPhones, as well as action mode, which looks pretty cool. Basically, you can record a video that's really shaky, and it will stabilize it to the best of its ability. And thanks to the tech specs, I discovered that it records action modes, which look like gimbal footage, at 2.8K at 60 frames a second, which is honestly pretty good. I knew it probably wouldn't be full 4K because it's cropping in a lot, but the fact that it's over 1080p and they still maintain the frame rate is awesome. So obviously, the regular iPhone 14 series is not that much different. They look very similar. Not really happy with any of the colors. They're so muted and so pastel, and I just prefer more saturated colors. But that brings me to the 14 Pro series, where there's a ton of changes, and the leaks were actually right this year about the colors. We got a deep purple, which is like Thanos' phone to the max, because yes, the pill hole leaks were correct, but what was not anticipated was how cool it is to have this dynamic island, is what Apple calls it, which is kind of a crazy name, but you have all these animations that brilliantly integrate with the pill and allow you to show airdrop progress or timer progress or calls or when your AirPods are connected or when you're charging. You get all of these really cool, slick animations that I was not expecting to have, and it just looks so dang clean. Like, I can't believe no one thought of this, how they could integrate the pill into iOS, which was way better than I was anticipating. And it's, I guess, because Apple just never really embraced the notch, you know? In years prior, Apple loved to just pretend the notch didn't exist, but now they're actually taking advantage of the pill and saying, no, this can allow us to put more information and have more clean animations up there. And I think it absolutely looks gorgeous. The iOS team did a great job with the dynamic island, which kind of gives me touch bar vibes, which I love. And it's so adjustable and adaptable, and it just blends in with the display, and oh, it just looks so freaking clean. And yes, the always on display is confirmed now on the 14 Pro series, which I'm surprised by because there's still like color. It like dims the display, but it's not like other always on displays where like there's all these black pixels and just a few numbers are on. There's actually still quite a lot of information in always on display mode, which I don't think I would use, but a lot of people have been asking for it, so now you have the option. I'm sure you can turn it off if you don't want it, but should be worth mentioning that all the iPhone 14s also are compatible with car crash detection because of this improved G-force accelerometer in all of them, so don't feel like you need to buy the Series 8 if you're going to be getting the iPhone 14, because that's going to detect car crashes anyway. And on the subject of satellite communications, that leak also ended up being true, because I guess if you hold your iPhone in a very special way, it will guide you on how to connect to a low Earth orbit satellite. And even though this is coming to all iPhones later with Starlink, I guess the iPhone 14 can do it now because it's using Globalstar satellites, I assume, and it doesn't obviously give you data, but it's for emergency services. You basically just text someone that you're in trouble, and they even have a little menu to help you simplify all of the data you can send, because texting is very, very slow when you're doing it from a phone just outside connecting to a satellite. That's hard to get right. But yeah, I guess that explains the far out invite. You are getting that satellite communications now. Just keep in mind that once Starlink gets V2 satellites up there, even your iPhone 13s and 12s will do that, and it'll work for emergency services. But the weird part is the iPhone 14 gets that satellite communication for 2 years after you take delivery of the phone, but then after that, I guess it's gonna cost something, because Apple said it's free for 2 years, but that just felt a little weird to me that emergency SOS features are being paywalled. Like, imagine someone had an iPhone 14 and then they got lost on a mountain a day after their free SOS satellite communications expired. It's like, guess I'll just die because I didn't renew the subscription, but it appears to work without any carrier as far as I can tell. Cool to see the little satellite icon in the top of your iPhone. But yeah, basically for emergencies only, you will be able to text people if you're in trouble, send them your location via Find My, even if you're out of range from a cell tower, which is great. The main sensor on the 14 Pros is a 48 megapixel, which they keep referring to as quad pixels because it's merging pixel tech, and this essentially allows them to have a digital zoom at 2x that is still full resolution because all the other lenses are still 12 megapixels. So the telephoto lens for the most part seems unchanged other than some improvements in low light, but yeah, the ultra-wide camera also should do better in low light. No 8K video, which personally I did not want to see because I think 8K is a waste of time. Very few people can actually appreciate or see 8K video at full res, so they're just doubling down on cinematic mode, which now can be recorded at 4K, and the good news is whether you buy the 128 gig iPhone 14 or the 256 gig iPhone 14, you get 4K cinematic mode, although it's still limited to 30 frames a second. I was really hoping for 60, but oh well. But unfortunately, it is still the same story with ProRes recording. If you buy the 128 gig iPhone 14, you still can only record in ProRes at 1080p, and you have to buy the 256 gig iPhone 14 if you want to record ProRes at 4K. But I personally think ProRes doesn't look that much different from HEVC, which is the standard video codec anyway. But I was just very excited and happy to see that the 14 Pro still starts at $999. 14 Pro Max still starts at $1,099, which is way cheaper than I was expecting this year's iPhones to be. But I should mention that overseas there has been a ton of price hikes across the lineup. £150 more in the UK, $200 more in India, and I think that does have a lot to do with the weakening of the euro in Europe and a lot of currencies crumbling depending on where you are in the world. So my heart goes out to all of you international viewers overseas that are going to have to deal with these higher prices. I'm grateful for us in the US that we don't have to pay these price hikes, but you guys probably have better healthcare systems anyway. So I guess you win some and you lose some depending on where you live. However, one big downside that was rumored that is unfortunately the case for us in the US is that they have removed the SIM card tray across the entire iPhone 14 lineup. You still get a SIM tray if you're outside of the US, which is kind of surprising, but it's, I guess, Apple really pushing for eSIM. They want everybody to move on from the physical SIMs, which is going to be a real headache when you're traveling abroad, trying to switch between carriers and stuff. At least it is dual eSIM, so you can get multiple carriers on board, but I think this is just Apple's way of pushing carriers to adopt eSIM as quickly as possible, because this might feel premature to a lot of people that are used to just physical SIMs, and some carriers can make eSIM really easy. Other carriers make it really complicated and kind of frustrating to try to switch SIMs between devices. I'm personally the kind of guy that likes reviewing phones and trying out phones for a little while, so having to switch my physical SIM over to an eSIM and everything is kind of gonna annoy me. But either way, it wouldn't be an iPhone launch without some kind of controversial removal, and that's this year's. The SIM tray is no more in the US market, and I imagine they're probably gonna ditch it for everyone next year. I would be more understanding if like the US iPhones had some advantage, like there's no SIM tray, so these get a slightly better battery life or something, but no, it doesn't really appear to be the case. Apple didn't really say the battery life had improved with the 14 Pro series, but on the compare page, the 14 Pro Max lists a slightly higher battery life than the 13 Pro Max, so I think that's probably the best battery life on any iPhone. But what's cool is actually the 14 Plus at $899 has a better battery life than the 14 Pro at $999. So this is going to be an interesting dilemma for a lot of people. You know, it sucks that the regular iPhone 14s still have 60 hertz and they still have that old-fashioned notch, but the fact that there is now a big iPhone for $900 that has a really good battery life, I think it's going to be the best seller. I think a lot of people are going to opt for that one, but I've been wrong before. And a slight update that kind of went under the radar is Apple actually just lowered the price of AirPods 3, but only if you opt for a new option that they didn't have before, which is a non-wireless charging case. So before, when you bought AirPods 3, it was $179 and it cost $179, but now you can buy it for $169 with a non-wireless compatible case, which I guess some people maybe don't care about the wireless charging, but unfortunately no USB-C on any Apple products today, which is a bummer, but I think they're saving that for next year. No new fast charging or anything crazy like that, but I just have to say that Dynamic Island is one of the most impressive adoptions of hardware and software I've ever seen Apple come up with. It really reminds me of the Touch Bar, except maybe this one won't be removed in the future, and that makes me love the iPhone iPhone 14 Pro a lot more than I was expecting because Apple just has implemented this no-notch design in such a clean, elegant way. So much so that it makes me want to... No, I wasn't gonna say that. I wasn't, I swear. Okay. I need to get my hands on these things and tell you what I think when I'm in person with them, but yeah, on this Friday at 5 a.m. Pacific, you'll be able to pre-order the new AirPods Pro 2 and the new iPhones. The Apple Watches are actually available right now, so if you want an SE2 on launch day, better head over to the Apple website or the Apple Store app right now. Same story with the Apple Watch Ultra. If you want the Apple Watch Series 8, then stop. You don't. You want a Series 7, and you want to save yourself some money. You'll thank me later. But the weird thing is actually the iPhone 14 Plus, even though you can pre-order it this Friday, they said it's not launching until October 7th. So this is kind of a 10S, 10R situation all over again. All the rest of the iPhones in the lineup should be available on September 16th. But yeah, I guess that Plus option is just too weird, too different. They couldn't get that out in September. So you gotta wait a little bit longer for likely the most popular iPhone, but I'll be reviewing most of what was announced today and trying to talk myself out of falling in love with Dynamic Island because it's just so freaking beautiful. Oh my god. Let me know your favorite parts of the event down below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I'll see you all in the next one.